Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. I see some folks watching live on Facebook. We will get started here shortly, just a minute or so. Welcome, everyone. We will get started in just a moment. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Hey, Penny, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get us going. So welcome, everyone. This is another workshop through Fix-A-Fair at Home. We're bringing you resources that we would normally present or have available at the in-person Fix-A-Fairs. Unfortunately, we're still not hosting events due to public health safety considerations. So thank you for joining us online. Both folks that are in the Zoom room and on Facebook Live. If you are watching on Facebook, you can enter questions in the comments and we will see those and respond to those. And if you're in the Zoom room, you can use the controls. When you hover over the screen, you can enter questions into the chat or the Q&A there. Let's see, Fix-A-Fair is presented by the City of Portland, Oregon, and my name is Wayne Grabowski. I'm one of the co-coordinators of Fix-A-Fair. And today we have Penny joining us from Portland Water Bureau. Penny, thank you so much. It's very exciting. I'm excited to see you and have you here today. Take it away.
Thanks, Wing. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'll start sharing my screen. And put that into slideshow. Okay, this is your beautiful Portland water. This is in the Bull Run watershed. We'll talk more about it in a minute, but today we're going to be talking about your water. So we'll do an overview of the drinking water system. We're going to focus on water quality, conservation, and how we can help. So that's what I hope to get to you today. I am Penny Milton. I work with the Portland Water Bureau. So that's a part of the city of Portland, and we're your drinking water providers if you're in the city of Portland. And I may be joined by Matt Weatherly, who is in our water quality information group. He's going to be available for questions at the end if folks have questions related to water quality. But I want to start and just launch a little poll, I think, here in a second. Actually, Wing. Oh, am I not sharing? I'm not sharing yet. Let me see.
You should be, but I can run the poll for you.
That'd be great. Can you run our first one?
Sure thing.
And if you're not seeing my presentation, just let me know. Okay, so yeah, just do you live in the city of Portland? This is super helpful for us, so I can know who I'm speaking with. And we'll go ahead and close the poll. Okay, so everyone in this group is in the city of Portland, so that's wonderful. So I will be able to speak to you directly, and if you have folks that live outside of the city, some of this will still be relevant, but we're going to speak specifically about Portland. All right.
And hey, Penny, sorry to interrupt you, but we can't see your presentation if it should be up at this moment. I think you just said that, so we wanted to make sure.
Hooray, let's see.
There we go. Beautiful.
Okay, is that okay?
Yep, smiling faces there.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm sorry, I have a cold and a toddler. Is that a good excuse? I don't know, but I'm excited to be with you either way. All right, let's get this going. So why we're here, a better understanding of our water system, and we're going to talk about how safe water gets to you. We're going to give you some tips about water quality at home and in the office. and troubleshooting high leaks and bills. So if you came for high leaks and bills, or leaks and high bills, we are gonna get to that. If someone has lost income or is living with low income, we have some programs that can help. So we'll tell you about those. I will tell you about those, and how to store water in case of emergency. If there's anything else that you would like to get to that's related to water, if you can just put that in the chat, that would be super helpful for me. So essentially, what brought you here tonight? Why are you getting to spend an hour with me? I'm excited that you're here. And Wing, if there's anything that comes in, just go ahead and let me know. But we're going to start out just talking a little bit about our water. So we have 2 sources of water in Portland. We're super lucky. We have the Bull Run watershed, which is our primary water source. It's a rain-fed water source, so surface water. And essentially, there is a large area of land about the size of the city of Portland, 26 miles east of us, outside of the town of Sandy. And it's in kind of the foothills of Mount Hood. It's actually not connected to the water that drains straight off of Mount Hood, which is a good thing for our water quality. But so all of that water that does drain within our watershed goes into the Bull Run River. And then we have 2 dams on that river that allow us for storage within the watershed that we can use throughout the summer months. And we'll look at that more in just a little bit. And then the lower photo is of one of our wells. So it just looks like a little hill with some white spouts coming out. That's one of our drinking water wells. So we have drinking water wells along the Columbia River and in between the Columbia River and I-84 going out east towards Troutdale. And that's our second drinking water source, groundwater. So this gives you a little look at the system. So I'm highlighting our watershed and our 2 dams, Dam 1 and 2. And then we have our treatment facility out there as well that flows into town and essentially mixes with groundwater if we are using groundwater at the time at Powell Butte, and then goes out into the rest of our distribution system. Our groundwater system is called the Columbia South Shore Well Field, and it is, it's, I believe, 26 drinking water wells that then feed into Powell Butte as well. So this is a really good thing to have 2 sources, especially when we think about climate resiliency and just anything that can happen. It's just always good to have a resilient kind of a second source. We serve water to about 1 million people per day, and that demand ranges from about 80 million gallons per day up to an average of 130. It can definitely go higher in the summertime. But we're serving a lot of water to about 1/4 of the people that live in Oregon. I talked about the Bull Run watershed, but I just want to make sure it makes sense what a watershed is. So this is just a little diagram. Basically, any of the rain or snow that falls into that area is going to flow into that common point of water. And so that's either a river or a lake. So for us, that's the Bull Run River, which is then dammed and created, reservoirs for us to store that water. And there it is. This is a picture of our Dam 1 and the reservoir behind it there. Okay, Wing, if you wouldn't mind launching the second poll on tap water versus bottled water.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So this is just your preference. What do you like to drink? Tap water or bottled water? All right. Looks like we have folks almost locked in there. All good. And I'm just going to share out those results. Tap water, can drink it. We'll talk more about that as we go.
Hey, Penny, sorry, just to let you know, I'm freezing here a little bit, so I might have to log off, but you should be safe and sound. But if I disappear, that's why. My apologies.
Okay. So how we keep water safe along the way, this is going to talk a little bit about our treatment. But before we get to that, just everybody needs water. Everybody needs safe water. So that's why we're here. Our treatment is minimal, but it allows us to provide safe drinking water through the addition of chlorine, which is a disinfectant. So it kills bacteria, protozoa, etc. And then ammonia is added to be able to stabilize that chlorine and make that disinfectant last longer through our system. And then sodium hydroxide, which is added to change the pH and essentially make the water less corrosive to home plumbing. And that becomes important when we're looking at homes that may have lead fixtures or have used lead solder in their homes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Just so you know, there is a future treatment that's coming that is, so the one that will be coming next is April of this year, and we're going to have an improved corrosion control plant coming online that will essentially make that, what I just talked about, that last thing, making our water less corrosive to our system. It's going to do that even better. And I'm going to let Matt or other folks who might be able to join us later and talk more about the specifics of that if anybody has questions, but essentially just know that that's coming on board in April, and I can share some more information about that too. And then by 2027, we will have a filtration plant, and that's in the process of being built now. If you have any questions, just feel free to put those into the Q&A or the chat. And just know that we also do water quality sampling throughout our system. So we are constantly checking, and they're running hundreds of tests throughout the system every day, to make sure that your drinking water is safe. And this is just an example out at one of our sampling sites. And I believe in some of the pictures you can see, they're checking the chlorine levels. But yeah, just know that there are folks that are out there checking and ensuring the safety of your water. We also do our laboratory does tests in-house. So there are folks that are working, specifically on water quality testing, and they are trained and they're experts in their field. And some of these pictures were pre-pandemic, but they were wearing masks even before then. So that's a part of our process as well. And then system maintenance and pressure. So this is a big part of water quality, is maintaining pressure throughout our system, so that things are not getting back into the water, and maintaining the system in general to make sure that we have that constant supply of water that everybody needs. And you can see folks out there working on a snowy, icy day, and they were fixing a leak. So definitely huge kudos to our staff who've been working throughout the pandemic. We also see water as a shared responsibility. So there's parts that the Water Bureau does, and there's parts that we all do as people that live and work within Portland. So one of the big ones is emergency water storage. And I just want to touch on this for a second. So if you don't have water stored in your home right now, I would say if you can take one thing away from this is to maybe think about trying to start a water storage supply in your own home. So essentially we recommend that everyone have 14 gallons per person. So that's enough for 2 weeks, a gallon per person per day for that 2-week supply. And then you can store it in a number of different containers, but you want to avoid milk jugs or juice containers obviously that stored chemicals. And things that would be good would be plastic containers that are meant for bottled water, or 2-liter soda bottles if you don't have access to something like these, which are meant for water storage, like essentially this whoops, go back one. So there we go. So there's water bricks that you can see in the upper corner. There's large capacity drums that were used for food that may be available to folks, and you can also use your hot water tank to access water in an emergency, but we don't want you to think of that as your primary water storage. So definitely think about storing water at home, and we can talk more about that too if you have questions. I'm just going to check in on the Q&A because I think I see some coming in. Okay, so I have someone that I think this is maybe original why you're here. So how can I tell when my pipes are leaking? My water bill usage is suddenly doubled. Yes, we'll get to that. And you can use your water meter to check for leaks, and I'll tell you how to do that. And I'm just going to look at the other chat. Looks like folks are maybe interested in learning about downspouts as well. I'm only briefly going to talk about that. So if that's the main purpose, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I will give you some information on our Clean River Rewards program with the Bureau of Environmental Services.
I'm happy to also link to our downspout environmental services presentation that was recorded last year for
Oh,
Fix a
great.
Fair at Home, and we can do that at that time as well.
Okay. So just a little bit more kind of a summary of emergency water storage. So it's a 2-week supply. You want to have it easily accessible. So, not where you have to go under your house in an emergency to get it. Stored away from sunlight. That'll just keep it from plastic bottles from breaking down sooner. And you want to replace that every 6 months. It's also good to have a long-term emergency water treatment plan. So that'd be, some other way to treat your water. Maybe that's a camping filter, or you can think about like getting some treatment that you can add to water that you might have available. So something to consider. I know. So when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 3, I went into like overdrive mode where I was thinking about this. And I basically went crazy trying to store water all over our house. So you don't necessarily have to swing to that side, but do try to go to the 14 gallons per person in your home. Okay. We also have a lead reduction program, and this is really, really important for homes that were built in 1970 through about 1985. And that's because of, I believe, legislation that changed in 1985. But lead solder was often used to connect copper pipes, and that lead solder can leach out when water passes through it. So in Portland, we never had the kind of issues that other places in the country have had, where they had like full lead service lines. But we always recommend that people test their water just to know what your levels are in your home, because if you had something remodeled during that time, or even up to 2014, there can actually be lead in brass fittings in fixtures like faucets. So it's good to just check, and then you can know, and we can help you if you do end up having high results. Why you want to care about lead in water, I think a lot of folks know, but just the health effects, especially for children, are irreversible. So no amount of lead is safe. We want to make sure that kids are safe and healthy, and we don't want them having any of the issues that you can see here. So catching it, testing it, and especially if you have a home within those years, that's important to do. And it's all free, and we'll talk about that, but it's just leadline.org, and there's a phone number as well if that works easier for you. So so that the system itself, so we have never, like I said, we've never used lead pipes as our water mains. We have removed all the known sources of lead in our system. There were some lead connectors, like you can see in this diagram, the lead pigtails, and those were removed by 1998. So really what we're concerned about is in people's homes itself. So that's where we need your help with testing and just making sure that your home doesn't have that issue. And I'll just stop for a second. Wayne, do we have any questions that are related to that?
Someone is interested in what is the expiration of water stored.
Oh yeah, so you want to change it out about every 6 months. And that is hard to do. I think my water has been out there for at least a year, but you want the goal to be every 6 months. You'll change it out, make sure that your container is clean, and then restore it. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, go ahead and put it back in chat. If you do end up finding that you have increased lead, there are easy things that you can do, like running the water before using it, using only cold water for cooking or for baby formula for sure. So pretty simple things. And if you have any questions, we have a whole team of folks that are ready to help and answer questions if you do end up getting a higher result. And they will always call you if you do. So you'll hear from them and you'll have the support afterwards. And here's how you order. So leadline.org or the number, and just know that your privacy is protected, and you can use interpretation. If you know anyone who might need interpretation services, we have interpreters available through that. And so please do call, or please do put in a request if you're interested. And you don't have to be the homeowner. It can be an apartment or wherever you're drinking your water. You can always check it out. Also, if you run a childcare facility or you know someone that does, we do free childcare testing as well. And that's super important, as you know, because it would just be important with that age group. So feel free to get in touch with us if you know someone that could benefit from that or a facility that could benefit. Okay, we're going to shift, but before we shift, I'm about to talk about your water use, your bill, kind of some of the questions I know someone had about their water use doubling. So any questions related to like water quality or anything I've talked about so far? I don't see any in the chat. I think we're good. Okay, well, let's go on. Oftentimes, so my job is water efficiency. I work with people all the time about what's normal, how much water should they be using. So I think it's helpful to just kind of have this gauge of like, what is normal for Portland? So for us in the city, the average is 46 gallons per person per day, which might seem like a lot of water, like 46 gallons. How am I possibly using that much? But that's actually really low compared to other places in the city. Whenever I talk to folks who are, in water efficiency, but in California or Texas, they're like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. That's your whole water use. So yes, you're doing a great job already. And there are things that we can do to make your water use even more efficient. And it depends on a lot of stuff, like how many people live in the home, how old are the fixtures, what's the behavior of folks? Do you have teenagers that, don't care and want to like wash their hair 10 times? I mean, probably not, because teenagers are very conscientious, but just think about like, what is the behavior in your home and how might it be affecting your water use? If you think about a typical Portland household, we're looking at 15 units of water, so CCF, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but 15 units per quarter is what we see as normal. And that's based on a little bit over 2 people in a home. So if you have, excuse me, a family of 4, you're obviously going to have a higher average than that, but that's about what we're seeing for about, it's like 2.28 people, which is our average household size for the city. So we bill in these units that don't make a lot of sense, but they can easily be converted to gallons. So 1 CCF is 748 gallons. So if you want to get very excited about understanding your bill, you can always take it out, look at it, multiply it by 748 when you're looking at those units, and then you're going to know in gallons how much that is. And we'll look at a bill here in just a minute as well. Okay. Wing, could you launch another poll for me? Which uses the most water?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, we'll give you like 1 more second. And then here, I'll share the results out. So we had some folks that thought leaks as number 1, shower, and then toilets as well. So those are great guesses. And leaks is kind of a tricky one because yes, that can be super high, or it can be, just a drippy faucet, which also ends up being substantial. But toilets are the number 1. Especially when we're talking about indoor water use, they are the number 1 use of water in our home. So 24%, that's gone down a little bit because now we have more water efficient toilets, but that's not even including toilet leaks, which are the number 1 leak that we hear about from folks. Leaks account for about 12%, and that's overall. This is an average nationwide, but I've talked to customers. I was working with a customer the other day that had a leak that was 3,600 gallons per day. So obviously that would be, a huge impact on their particular water bill. But typically it's toilets. So we're going to talk a little bit about toilets and why it matters. So with toilets, you really want to think about how old is the toilet and how can you get older toilets out of your home. So if you had a toilet that went in before 1992, we want to get that out of your home and we want to replace it with a water efficient one. And that's just because it's going to use more than 1.6 gallons. Usually it's going to use about 3.5 or more, depending on the age of the toilet. And it's a common, so beyond just being inefficient, they start to fail and leak, especially, those older toilets. Any age toilet can leak, but especially if you're thinking about older ones. We do have rebates that can help offset the cost for you a little bit. So $50 is our standard rebate. And then if you're enrolled in the bill discount program, that's going to be a $100 rebate back on your bill. And you need to purchase a WaterSense labeled toilet. So that's a water efficient toilet. They're available, everywhere at big box stores or your local hardware store. If they sell toilets, they should have WaterSense labeled toilets, and you need to have your old toilet recycled. So those are kind of the two main requirements. Make sure you save your receipts, and then you can do a simple online application for that. If you have any questions about toilets, let me know. We're going to talk a little bit about things that can go wrong in toilets, because this is a Fix-It fair, and I want you to be able to feel empowered to go home and check your toilets and fix your toilets if need be. So just a little bit of toilet anatomy. So one of the most common places that toilets are leaking is the flapper. You can see that valve there. And we'll look at some other issues that come up with the chain and the float as well. So if you have a leaky toilet, there are a few reasons. The chain is one that, if it's too long, it can actually get caught or kinked, and then it can cause that flapper to just be lifted up. And essentially that's going to be a constant flow of water. So if you hear a toilet that's constantly running, you want to check that the chain isn't lifted up too much, or that the handle hasn't stuck and lifted that valve so that it's open. But check the chain. And this was a leak that was clocked at 800 gallons per day. This was, my coworkers did some flow recording on some of these leaks. So that's where we're getting the gallons here. This is one that had a hole in the middle of the flapper. So you might not have noticed it, except for that. Yeah, right there in the middle, water is just constantly leaking through there. And that's a maintenance issue. It's just worn out over time. And it was 1,800 gallons per day, the big one. This is, again, the flush handle binds, and then it just keeps that valve open, 1,000 gallons per day. Yikes. This is a pretty common one. The tank level can be too high, and water can actually be constantly flowing over that fill valve. And what that valve does is it just flows straight down into the bowl of the toilet and down your sewer. So if the water is too high and you flush it and then it gets just above the level, it's going to be a constant leak. So you want to make sure that it's about an inch below that fill valve tube. So you can go back or go home and just take off the lid, check the level of the water, and it should be, half an inch to an inch below the top of that overflow tube. So this was a question that came up. How can I find, or how can I figure out if my pipes are leaking? So you can always use your water meter to check. I mean, hopefully you don't have to wait until you get a big bill, but often that's what happens is, we're not out there looking at our water meters every day, but you can read your water meter and basically go out to the street. And if you're in a single family home, you should have a meter that is just yours. And if you're in a multifamily home, then this gets a little more complicated. So I'm just going to talk about single family homes for a minute. Open the meter lid, and then be careful because there can be bugs and things inside. But you want to open that lid and you're looking for the face plate of the meter. So in the picture, you can see that there's a little white plate and there's a lid that's kind of flipped back. And that's what we're going to be checking out here in a minute. So that plate has a few different things that I want to show you. The first is this. So this is the sweep hand, and essentially once this moves all the way around, then the number change. But what you really care about is this little triangle, and it can also be like a blue snowflake on some meters. And this is essentially your leak detection dial. So this is how you're going to be able to tell if a small amount of water is flowing through your meter. And that's how you can test if you have a leak. And I actually just did this today I was like, I haven't checked my meter for a while, and I was out pulling weeds. So I went and looked at it, and I have a blue triangle and it was not spinning. So that was a good thing because I wasn't using water in the house at the time. Obviously, if I had the washing machine going, that could just be water that's moving through for that. So don't use any water, go out to the curb, remove the plate, look at the meter itself and look for that little dial. If it's spinning and you're not using water inside, you have a leak. The other thing that you can do then is you can kind of try to isolate where that leak might be. Is it from the meter to your home, or is it inside your home? So if you know where your shutoff valve is to your water inside the home, so essentially if you have a main water shutoff, typically if you follow the meter, kind of go straight back to your house where it either enters the foundation or the crawl space is a good place to look for that. You can shut off that valve and then go back out and see, is that meter still spinning? Is the little detection dial still spinning? If so, then you know that the leak is somewhere between the meter and your home. If it stops, then you know that you have a leak indoors because you just isolated the whole inside of your house. One just point of caution is you want to be careful. I know if folks haven't used those valves for a long time, they might actually by turning them, they might not be able to close it all the way again. So just kind of like be careful if you have old valves for that main shutoff, and maybe you just want to look at the meter as a good starting place. That was kind of a lot. Do you have any questions about that? I can't see you all, so I'll just have you put into chat if you have any questions about using your meter to see if you might have a leak. Okay, I don't see any. We'll keep going. Let's do the last poll. So just do they pay your water bill directly to the city? Do you pay sewer, stormwater, water bill directly to the city, or do you pay through like an HOA or your rent? If you pay through your rent or anything like that, it's going to be a no. If you pay a bill directly to the city, then yes. I just want to make sure what I'm going to talk about is going to help. Okay, good. So I'm seeing almost everyone is paying a bill directly to the city. So that's perfect. We're going to talk about your bill in relation to what you're already seeing. Okay, I want to just kind of break down what's on the bill. So really important things is water. There we go. Water usage. So in this example, water usage is 25 units, 25 CCF or centiam cubic feet. That's what's going to be multiplied by this water rate for your total water volume charges. Now, in this case, the sewer volume is different, and this should help, but can get a little complicated. So your sewer volume is based on your water volume, but only during the winter months. So we assume that the water that you're using right now during the winter is all going down your pipes. Nobody's really watering their garden right now or filling up, a pool for your dog or anything like that. It's all just going down the pipes. So that volume, we take an average during the winter time. That's what's used for your sewer volume charges for the whole year. And that's because we don't have meters on your sewer pipes going, out to the street. We just have meters on the water coming into your home. So we're just trying to capture how much of that water is staying, being used, and then going out the pipes. And that's the sewer volume charge. The reason why this is so important to understand is if you have a leak during this winter time, or if you have a bunch of family over and they're staying for 3 months and then they leave and they're gone for the rest of the year. If you're using a lot more water during these winter months, that's going to affect your sewer volume, which is the more expensive per unit cost for the whole year. I'm sorry, it keeps skipping like that. I'm going to go back here. So this volume is different because this person is using less water during the winter than they do during the summertime. So this was a summer, must have been a summer bill. Oh no. So essentially their winter volume was already set and they were using slightly more than that for actual water use later in the year. So in the summertime, we understand that you're watering your yard and you're using water outside. That water is going into the ground and it's not going into the sewer. So that's why you're not getting charged those sewer volume charges. So I just want to kind of make sure folks know conservation during the winter time is really important. And also making sure that you get leaks fixed during this time and calling us to get an adjustment and to let us know, because if your water use, if we think that that's what's normal for you, that's going to affect you for the whole next 12 months until you get back to that point where it's that winter average period again. And if you ever want to know what your dates are for the winter average, you can always call. Our customer service folks can help with that. But yeah, that's something to know about. And then I want to highlight the Clean River Rewards program. So someone had asked about downspouts. I know Wing was going to link to that, but essentially if you have the water that falls as rainwater on your home, if you have a way to capture that and you have your downspouts disconnected or you have it going into a rain garden or somehow safely keep it on your property, then you can get up to 100% of that on-site stormwater charge taken off your bill. So that can be helpful because it's about $30 a bill. And yeah, every little bit helps. And then the other charges on here, so there's a small charge for the Portland Harbor Superfund. And so that's the cleanup that we all collectively put into that. And then the base charges for keeping the infrastructure and the pipes and everything maintained and ready for you when you need it. So that I wanted to just make sure we understand the bill before we talk about how to bring it down.
Hey, Penny, do you think now would be a good time for me to post the links to workshops that were recorded from last year that may relate to what people are asking about stormwater?
Sure. Yeah.
So I just so everybody knows what I'm posting, there were two that may relate to what people are interested in that I don't think are going to be taught again this year, unfortunately, but we do record our sessions. So the first is from Portland Bureau of Environmental Services, and it's how to get involved in watershed health. And so it sort of leads you to the resources rather than explaining them. But then we had East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District present on stormwater and rain gardens. And that was more hands-on downspout disconnect tools, a little bit more hands-on DIY. So I'll put both of those in the chat there.
Thanks, Wayne. All right, so speaking of the bill, we have a lot of programs that can help, especially if you have higher bills right now. So the first is the bill discount program. So it's based on income, but if you fall within the income ranges, and I'll put that up on the next slide, you can get a pretty substantial discount off of your bill. And then so that's if you make about 60% of the median family income for an area. If you make less than that, in the 30% or below, then you're going to get a higher discount. So it's great to get on that program. You stay on it for 2 years unless you're on a fixed income. And then, you may just stay on it for the rest of your life with that account, but definitely apply. And then because you have been enrolled in that program, you can get access to free leak and fixture repair. And that's a program that I coordinate. And then there's also crisis assistance that comes with that. So you can have up to $500 every 12 months taken off your bill if you have a large leak or something comes up and you're just unable to pay. We know that things happen and that's what it's there for. So you have access to that once you're enrolled in the bill discount. And then there are a lot of non-income based programs that are eligible. Anyone can be eligible for. So payment arrangements, I talked about Clean River Rewards a little bit. So that stormwater discount. And then things like a leak adjustment, our conservation devices, and we'll get to conservation devices too in a second, but just leak adjustment for a second. If you ever find and fix a leak, like we were talking about toilet leaks, please call us and try to do that as quickly as possible, because we can look back on what would be normal for you at that time and then credit part of your bill back, so that if you had an indoor leak, it's usually about a 50% credit. If it's an underground leak, we can credit more, up to 100%. So definitely call, and then that would help with making sure that your sewer volume charges were going to be right for the rest of the year too. So here's the eligibility for the financial assistance program. So if you make less than this at the family size listed, then you would be eligible based on income. You do have to submit the income documents, but we can help you figure out what you need and kind of talk through that with you. The staff is great, who works in this program, and definitely encourage people to apply if they might, be eligible based on income. So if you know a friend that could use this, please share. And I will put the link in the chat in a little bit here. So I talked about if you're enrolled in that program, then you are eligible for free water leak repair. You also have to be the homeowner for this program. So if you own your home and you're eligible for the bill discount and you have a water leak, then we can do that for free. We can also replace toilets for free. So if you have an older toilet and you want to replace it with a WaterSense labeled toilet, we can do that, and you don't even have to worry about the rebate. We can just have a plumber come in and take care of that for you. We can pretty much fix anything that's water related, but it has to be fresh water. So we can't do sewer leaks and clogs or anything like that, or like drain. So if you have a leak in the P-trap, in any sort of drain, we can't do that. But water related, we can fix for free. And it's a pretty simple program that just works with local plumbers. And we have 2 community partners that help coordinate those plumbers on our behalf. And yeah, I'd encourage you to apply or tell people about it if they have leaks. Anyone can get free conservation devices sent out. So these are dye tablets, which you see in the middle, the 2 little blue things. And then those go in the back of your toilet. So those go in the toilet tank, and you would let it sit for about 15 minutes. If you come back and you see blue coloring in the bowl, then you'll know that you have a toilet leak. So basically it's just coloring the water in the tank, and it's gonna watch, or it's going to then flow. If it flows into the bowl during that time, it's moving without you flushing it, and that means that it's leaking. So dye tablets, we'll give those out as many as you need for free. You can also do the same thing with 10 drops of food coloring. And then we've got shower timers. You can see there's a blue spray nozzle thing that's a pre-rinse spray valve. So if you know folks that work in commercial restaurants and need something like that, happy to give those out. We've got hose nozzles, and the blue thing with the 4 little ports it's a fill cycle diverter. It can be a retrofit to any toilet and save about a ½ gallon per flush. And then water efficient shower heads. So every little bit helps. These things all take down your water use slightly. Some of them pretty substantially. It'll cut your water use in half in some cases. So definitely, or for that particular fixture. So definitely order them. You can do it online, or you can give us a call, and the hotline number is up there, 4527. We offer rebates. So I talked about toilet rebates. I won't talk too much more about that, except for just to say that that's for any customer class. And so if you know multifamily folks, so people that own apartment buildings, you can let them know they can get up to 50 per account. Same with commercial. And then we have outdoor rebates that include irrigation controllers and multi-stream rotating nozzles, which is a fun set of words to say, but is basically a water efficient sprinkler head, and you can get $3 off per nozzle. And then if you work in a restaurant or somewhere that has an ice machine, we can help you replace a water cooled ice machine with an air cooled ice machine that saves a lot of water, and will do up to $3,000 or 50% of the cost for that. It has to be an Energy Star labeled machine that goes in. So just know there's rebates if you want kind of an incentive to help move into a more water efficient device of some sort. This is what we talked a little bit about with the Clean River Rewards program. So just again to highlight, so stormwater has to safely go into the ground on your property instead of going into the sewer system. And then if that does that, then you would apply for this discount, and then essentially it stays on your account as long as the program is there. So that's pretty great. Just other ways to save, always checking for leaks is the huge one. Reporting leaks to building management. If you are in an apartment complex, it seems like most people are paying their own bills, so probably more in your home. And then just know that we can advocate for you and share resources as well. So I think my main takeaway would be, please know that we want to help and that you can always call. And our customer service is great. And I'll put my direct number here as well. So my number is this 865-6415. That's my work cell, and you're welcome to get in touch with me or say, Penny, I had a question after this presentation, and yeah, I'll help you find the right person if I'm not that person. Yeah, and that is kind of the main things I wanted to cover. I wonder if folks have other questions that have come up throughout our time together, or things that you felt like, weren't covered and you would like to see more information on.
Penny, there's always a little bit of a delay, but if folks are watching on Facebook, see a few folks watching live on Facebook, you can put a comment in the comment area, put a question in the comment area, and we will respond to that as well.
Yeah, and for the person that put in that your water use had suddenly doubled, I would love to talk with you. And why don't I just put in, I'm going to put in my email address. So it's just pennymilton@portlandoregon.gov. Put that here in the chat. Is it worth using a Brita filter? You know what, I'm going to message Matt and just see if he wants to come chat with us for a minute. This is my colleague who does water quality, and he may be able to speak to that. I don't know the answer to that. So I'll see if he wants to come chat with us. And then I see that we might have another question here too. Oh, it's just where we can find the recording. I'll let you answer that, Wing.
So the recordings are immediately available on our Facebook channel, and then we tidy them up a little bit, edit them so they're a little bit more accessible, and then post them to our YouTube channel. What I'll do is I'll post both here. The YouTube posting will take about a week or so just because of the work that goes into it from our video editors. So I'll post that now so you can view that later.
Okay, and I'm not sure if Matt's going to jump on or not. If he does, he can answer more like filter related questions. I will say what I know about using a filter of any sort is that you just have to make sure that you're following the instructions on replacing it. There can be issues, often folks just kind of forget about that and leave them in their fridge forever. And then so I would just say, make sure that you're following the instructions and replacing it when needed. And it depends on what it says it covers and what you're trying to take out. Like some people have sensitivities to chlorine or other specific things. And so you just want to make sure that it's going to be able to take out that thing, because there are different levels of filters and quality. So I know that's a non-answer. Maybe I'll also put you've got the water quality or pressure line up here. So this is a great one. That's my colleague Matt, where he's going to answer that, or just email wbwaterline@portlandoregon.gov. And I'm going to find there's a website that we have up on filters that might be helpful too. So I'm giving you one more minute to ask any questions while I'm putting this up. Sorry. Okay, so this is all about filtering or treating drinking water at home, and I will drop this in the chat. And then I'll just put a couple other links if you're interested. So this is the water leak repair program that I talked about. And I will also put our financial assistance program in here in a minute. And Matt is going to come on. So for anyone want to stick around and talk about water quality, he's fun and he'll be here shortly. So. Yeah. Oh, yay. Hi, Matt.
Hello. I would have changed my
Welcome.
background earlier, but sorry. It's just been a busy day.
No worries. We just had a question about, is a Brita filter worth it? And I put in the link to filtering or treating your drinking water at home. That's the question.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, that's probably one of the most common questions that we receive is in regards to filters. So Britas, they have two different types. One that's made more for taste and odor, and then I think the other one's called Long Last. It has like a blue looking type of actual filter. And I think they make two different styles. One's a pitcher and then one's an attachment to the end of your faucet. And the Long Last is the only one I know that actually does remove lead and other heavy metals. And I think it is certified by NSF, or the National Sanitation Foundation, which is third-party certified, which is what we do recommend. And it's just not the, producer or manufacturer saying what it does. But I do think that Brita is certified, but you would want to just check it to be sure.
Thank you, Matt.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other water quality related questions while you have the live person? This is who's behind the water quality line when you call.
Sad. I was hoping for more, but that's okay.
Okay.
Hey
Well,
Matt,
Wing,
good to see you. This is Wing.
Good to
Sorry
see
to
you.
interrupt.
Yes.
Hi. I'm keeping an eye on Facebook, or folks are watching. So if you're on Facebook Live and have questions, just pop them in the comments there, and we'll make sure they're answered too. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. This is a great presentation. Lots of great information. I was actually able to lower my house's water bill last year after this presentation, so it was really helpful.
nice. Good. Yeah, I didn't talk too much about climate change. I do have some slides on that. I was saving to see if we had time, but I don't know if folks are interested in that, but I could do a little bit. I'll just go and see. Sorry.
I'll say, since that's a core mission of the Bureau that hosts the Fix Affairs, planning and sustainability, I wouldn't mind seeing climate related slides for sure.
Yeah, we'll just do a few real quick here.
Oh, and we have an exuberant yes to that.
Oh, great. Okay, so yeah, just wanted to talk about climate change, as I think it's on everyone's mind. We talked about the resiliency of having two sources. So having our groundwater source is really important to Portland and our long-term planning. So right now, we are in a really good position for water, and we are planning long-term, but we're also thinking about, how historically marginalized communities have been most harmed by global warming and how we can be a part of that. So things that we're doing are trying to reduce our own carbon emissions, thinking about this as an intergenerational obligation, especially with water. This is it's a life-sustaining thing. Everybody needs it. We need to make sure that it's available for future generations, and that the impact of getting water isn't making the situation worse. So that's part of, lowering our own emissions. I will say, ways that we're thinking about addressing it in our workforce, when we had the wildfires a couple years ago and before that as well, There are huge impacts to our staff working outdoors, so we're working on ways to mitigate that. And knowing that there's inequities within our workforce as well. You know, there are folks that can stay in the office and not have that same impact, and then it really is impacting the people out in the field. So we're working on that. There are things that we've needed to do within our own system, and you know, looking at even just like weather events in general. You know, when things got really, really hot last year in June, and we had that huge heat wave, and then again in August, you know, we have to look at how is that affecting all of our infrastructure, and are there changes that we need to build in now so that those things are resilient for those kind of more extreme events that may become more common over time, or you know, will become more common over time. We've been working on our supply chain, so working on purchasing, for example, low carbon concrete and reducing our own emissions with our fleet. We work with client scientists on research, and we have a staff member that's dedicated to climate change. That is her whole job within the Water Bureau. So that is pretty awesome. And then able to coordinate within the city as well. So really lucky to have that focus, I think. But people are always kind of thinking about what can you do as individuals. And so I think some of the things are pretty straightforward, and like using less water is going to use less of all of those inputs, and so that's going to help with everything. So you know, making sure that your home is water efficient is not only going to help with your bill, but it's kind of that big picture of everybody doing their part. And while we do have good water supplies, it helps stretch those water supplies, especially during times that we have less, you know, when it's in our drier periods. Storing water for all emergencies, we talked about that, and you can think about that from anything from like a main break to, you know, an earthquake or some other kind of crazy event, which we've all had enough of, I think, over the last 2 years. But having water for yourself is actually a big part of resiliency, so that you and your family are okay in that period where we're working to get the system back, or at least get emergency services out to folks if there was kind of some kind of event like that. And then, you know, local opportunity to just engage with local groups that are working on these issues as a part of our local impact on the bigger picture. So a few of those are listed. And I think, yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to connect folks to our climate program person. And she's really great and can give you more details, but that's just kind of a tiny taste of some of the things that we're thinking about, but definitely know that the Water Bureau is planning and keeping climate change in mind as we're thinking about our water for the next, you know, many years to come. And I think that's all I have. So thanks for sticking with me for an hour, and please do call or reach out. I'm going to go back to the slide just that has my contact information, and have a great evening. Thanks, everybody.
Penny, thank you so much. That was great. Some appreciation in the chat there as well. Thank you all for joining us.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Penny, feel better, and the little one too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Bye,
right.
everyone.
Okay, bye.